Hello. I want to talk about issues of race, racism, education, social cohesion, history, white guilt, and a lot of other factors. I'm going to roll this into one video because all the issues are interrelated, but now the sound quality is quite good. It seems like a good time to do this. It is something of a spontaneous video because I've only decided to make this in the last sort of 10-15 minutes, but the issues are things I've believed for a very long time. So I came across an article about a woman by the name of Caroline Bryant Donham, and she's now in her 80s, but back in 1955, she was the woman at the centre of the Emmett Till case. If you know anything about American civil rights, you'll know that Emmett Till was a young boy, only 14 years old, who was involved in a very brutal lynching. Klansmen kidnapped him and basically killed him. His face was horribly mutilated. His mother insisted on an open casket. And it wasn't the last lynching, but it was one of the last high profile lynchings in America. But significantly, it really spurred the civil rights movement. This was 1955, the same year, I believe, as the Rosa Parks bus incident. And it's a famous case. But anyway, in recent years, it's transpired that this woman has basically confessed that she was lying about the circumstances around it, i.e., her claim that this young boy had groped her and acted inappropriately. She's basically admitted that that was a lie. Um, in my opinion, she should be arrested for perverting the course of justice, or at least, some people will say, oh, she's too old now. I'm not sure about that. Um, I think what she done was despicable, and she apparently has shown some remorse. But I think I don't know. I think she should have to face some justice for lying based on her own claims. Anyway, I came across a video about it, and one aspect that got my attention was that all the comments, or a lot of the comments on this video, were about hating all white people. So there were things like, this is why I hate all white people. This is why whites will never be forgiven. This is why, etc., etc., etc. You get the drift. There's a video made by a black guy. Now, when I see this sort of mentality, first I understand the anger, absolutely, because it was a horrible case and it was one of the best documented cases of the sort of racism of the time. The way African Americans were lynched for the most stupid reasons and often of virtually no evidence or no solid evidence. I'm very, very aware of the history of white racism in America. But if someone was to ask me, what is your definition of racism? If you had to sum it up in a simple way, you could say it's hating another race, and that obviously is racism. But for me, it would be, I would provide a simple definition of racism. It is refusing to see people as individuals and tarnishing an entire race with one brush. Now, one problem I have with some African Americans is they do seem to hate all white people. So they take an example of racism, and then they think that makes it okay to hate all white people. I saw one woman write, "You will never understand, not to me personally, but to someone else. You will never understand what it's like being an African American until you spray your skin." Well, that's true. You can't know someone else's experience, but likewise, there is absolutely no legitimate reason to try and condone hating an entire race because of what some of that race done. So this is why I totally reject the white guilt in the sense of what I am not going to do as a white guy is go around dropping at the knees of every black person I meet and saying, please forgive me for the racism of my people. Fuck that. What I would do is acknowledge the racism of white people in history. But what I would say to any black or Asian or Hispanic person out there who wants to hate me because I'm a white guy, my message is fuck you. Simple as that. I don't apologize for something that's beyond my control. I acknowledge white racism and I feel it is my responsibility as a human being to confront and challenge white racists. But I detest this lazy, ignorant mentality that because some people within a race do bad things, then it's therefore legitimate to hate all people within that race. And I think this is one of the biggest problems America faces. And it isn't just America, but America is one of the most prominent examples. We have it to a large, well, to some extent in the UK. I don't think we're quite as bad as the US in terms of the polarization, but you can find examples of it here, particularly in London. Um, but this, to me, is the biggest problem America is facing. It's not that the country is full of suspicious people who hate each other. I don't believe that. But I believe there is enough of a polarization that there is this tribal mentality going on. Now, like I said, I don't want to exaggerate. Most Americans probably are okay with their neighbors, whether they be black, white, Hispanic, or Asian. But there are too many people that have that tribalized mindset. And I think there's no getting away from the fact that there are parts of the United States, parts of Britain as well, parts of many countries that are racially divided. I don't want to say segregated because that implies an actual government policy. But even in today's world, there is a lot of division out there. And this is very obvious in America with all the situation going on with police and the public. And it's once again coming up with this latest shooting in Minneapolis because Black Lives Matter, people associated with that movement, are saying, oh, America only cares now that a white woman's been shot. Well, that is simply not factually true because in the other shootings there has been a lot of protests and a lot of noise. So they're just saying something that is factually not true. They're arguing that because the victim in this case was a white woman, that's why people now care, as if people have suddenly turned attention to the issue of police killings. So I think a big part of this is people not being responsible in the things that they are saying. They're letting their emotions take hold. I also believe the media has a lot to answer for. The media loves race controversy. And I do say the media in a collective sense because I can't think of a single network that is is responsible, whether left wing or right wing, they both do it. And it's a disgrace. I believe anyone in a position of authority or power, whether they're white or black, need to be responsible in the things that they say. So black community leaders need to be responsible in the things that they say, just as much as white community leaders need to be responsible in the things that they say. Um, but the problem is this issue is so polarizing, and by issue I'm talking about race relations as a general concept, has become so polarizing that you can't even have basic communication without accusations and counter accusations. Now, President Obama spoke about the need to have an honest conversation. But how can people have an honest conversation when the first thing that the other person will think of is you're a racist? So if I try, for example, to have a conversation about race relations with some black people, they will immediately think you're a white guy, you can't have an opinion. And if you're telling someone they can't have an opinion, how can there be any communication? This is why I take this issue with some feminists. Likewise, they basically have the attitude if you're a man, you can't have an opinion on sexism, on any issues connected with that. So, if you want to really be honest about this, if you want to really have a progressive way forward, you have to listen to people. And I think it comes down to everyone trying to bury their ego a little bit. Everyone. And I think society has a long way to go, American society, but Western society in general, wherever there's racial tensions, in fact, and it isn't just the West, it can be found all over the world. I guess America just gets a lot of focus because it's the most powerful country in the world, and it's inevitably in the media a lot. But I feel sad and frustrated when I see people generalize an entire race. Now, attacking and vilifying all white people because of what white racists done in the Deep South in the 1950s is no better than vilifying all black people because of the behavior of black gangs in Chicago. You know, how would you feel as a black person if a white person said, oh, all black people are thugs and criminals? You wouldn't be happy about it. You'd say it was racism, and you would be right because that's what it would be. Well, as far as I'm concerned, saying all white people are racist is a racist view in itself. I don't believe in reverse racism. I believe in racism, period. I don't care who you are, I don't care what your background is. If you have a racist view, you have a racist view. And I'm very much of the view that I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. If I meet someone, I'm civil to them. But if someone is going to be cold to me for something that's beyond my control, i.e., I'm white, I'm a man, or I'm heterosexual, I will not return any respect to that person. I'm not necessarily going to get into a confrontation with them, but as far as I'm concerned, respect has to be mutual. So you can't demand that white people um, sort of acknowledge racism if you're going to vilify every single white person. I also think it is ignorant because in the civil rights movement, there were white Americans who took great risk to do the right thing, and in some cases, they were killed for standing up for their views. So when I see black racists justify their ignorance by pointing to extreme cases of white racism as if to say, you know, you can find many analogies with this. It's like Islamists. Are we going to say that all the world's Muslims are violent death cult followers? No. And it's not about being politically correct. That's not what I'm advocating. I'm advocating common sense. I'm advocating a way for people to see each other as individuals. But unfortunately, to the racist mind, it's tunnel vision. White racists only see people as inferior because they have all their crap about Aryan supremacy and all the rest of it. Black racists, in my opinion, have a victimhood complex. They go through life hating all white people because at one point in their life, or probably more than once, they had a bad experience with white racism. Therefore, they decide to hate all white people. That's lazy and that's ignorant. And you can make many analogies. I treat all racists with equal contempt. I don't care who they are. And by the way, the whole issue of experience, well, if you're saying, oh, you haven't been in the black person's shoes, no, I haven't, but how is that really any different from, let's say you have a white person who's being attacked by a black gang? That's a very stressful and traumatic experience. Now, would that justify them hating all black people? No. So I don't believe that experience is a justification. I mean, if a woman is raped, would that then justify her becoming a radical man hating terrorist, for example, because she had a terrible experience with one man? You get the drift of what I'm driving at here. Generalizations of any kind are bullshit. They're regressive. It just really, really irritates me. And I get that, well, more than irritates me, it saddens me. It saddens me that people could be so close minded that they cannot see the bigger picture. Now, I get that emotions can be a very powerful thing. And if you've had a bad experience, you know, I get that. I get that you're not going to immediately be in any mood for reconciliation. But for me, it's about common sense. So if I meet a black or Asian or Hispanic person who takes an issue with me personally because of lynchings in the 1950s, I'm going to say, well, to hell with you. I've done nothing to you. I don't need this sort of crap. I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am. The problem is trying to, when someone sees colour, when that's the first thing they see, there's no getting through to common sense. So the sort of people I'm talking about, They're not thinking of me as an individual. If they're watching this, they're not thinking of me as an individual. They're thinking white guy talking. They're not thinking this is the opinions of centrist philosopher of Nathan Hazlitt. They're thinking white guy talking. So they don't hear what I'm saying. They just see color. And that's what I detest about all racists. They're too cowardly to look at the bigger picture. So it saddens me. It really does. And I don't want to exaggerate. This isn't to say that the majority of people think this way. I think the majority of people know that there is a bigger picture. It's just that sort of racist opinions that are out there are quite strong and they're quite obvious. By the way, I would just close with one point. It's connected to the whole issue of white guilt. There are people who say black people can't be racist. Rubbish. Rubbish. Anyone who judges an entire race in a negative way that hates an entire race is by definition a racist. And I do believe that those black racists or Asian racists who make that nonsense claim need to really be confronted on that because it is utter nonsense. Just because traditionally white people had the power and they were in the position of authority and so on, and there was state sanctioned racism from white people, doesn't mean that black or Asian or Hispanic people today are not capable of having racist views. If you believe that, you're an idiot. And that mentality really, really irritates me. Because how can you expect people to move forward if you're saying, I can be racist to you and you can't be offended? That's crazy. If someone says to me, I hate you because you're a white guy, I'm going to think, well, fuck you. You don't know me. You're judging me in something that's beyond my control? It's crazy. Just like if someone was to hate me because I was British and they had it in for the Brits. Again, beyond my control. I could change my passport, but I was born in the United Kingdom. I'm British. Therefore, some feminists who might hate men might just say, oh, you're a man, you can't talk. Linda Sarsour came out with that one recently. Apparently, a young guy challenged her at one of her speeches, and she said, you're a white male, you can't have an opinion. Which, incidentally, is something I detest about the regressive left. The fact that they think they can just shout people down as having it. In a democracy, everyone is allowed an opinion. Everyone. What you can't do is threaten people. What you can't do is bully people. But everyone fundamentally is allowed an opinion, or at least they should be. Anyway, there's a few things to think about. So, to anyone watching this video, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, or Asian, if you agree with me, thank you. You're good people. I respect you, right, as fellow human beings. But to the small minded racists out there, whether you're a white supremacist, a black supremacist, an Asian supremacist, or Hispanic supremacist, whatever little tunnel vision you have, I do not respect you, and I never will respect you. And it's not because of the colour of your skin, it's because of the smallness of your mind. Thanks for watching.